Welcome, age of vintage society. Anne Baxter worked with many of Hollywood's best directors, was nominated for one Academy Award and won another, but was regarded as a skilled actor rather than a great star of her time. She outlasted many of her more famous contemporaries in film, on the stage and on television for nearly 5 decades. Many of Hollywood's best directors found Baxter a surprisingly intense performer, and she did first-rate work for Hitchcock, Wells, Wellman, Edmund Goulding, Niculesco, Milestone and Joseph L. Mankiewicz. Was Anne Baxter and Bette Davis's feud fake? Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. Although more famous for her reliability, skilled acting and girl-next-door looks, parts of her off-screen life were as dramatic as any part she ever played. Her feud with Bette Davis, her 3 marriages and her sudden move to outback Australia for 4 years make her life an interesting and theatrical story as captivating as Anne herself was. Anne Baxter was the only girl born to Catherine Wright Baxter, whose father, Frank Wright, was an American architect who designed over 1,000 structures in his 70 years as an architect. The family was well off and enjoyed the affluent lifestyle of a famous father, even if Catherine was one of 8 children across 3 wives. So it was no surprise when Catherine met and then married Kenneth Stewart Baxter, an executive of the Canadian whisky distilling company, Seagram's, as they were both from wealthy and prosperous families. Born on May 7, 1923, Anne was the only girl in a family of 5 children, 4 of them boys, one of whom died at only 3 months of age. Around the time Anne was 5, she got a part in a school play that she loved, and after that the family moved to Westchester County in New York. When she was 6, she continued to seek out chances to act at Brearley, an all-girls private school in Upper Manhattan. When Anne was just 10 years old, she saw her first Broadway play starring Helen Hayes and declared to her family that that is what she wanted to do with her life – act. Obviously determined to pursue her career path now that her mind was made up, Anne got her first Broadway part in Seen But Not Heard at the tender age of 13. She was studying acting under the famous actress and teacher Maria Ouspenskia. In 1939, at the youthful age of 16, Anne auditioned and got the role of Katharine Hepburn's younger sister in the play The Philadelphia Story. But during the pre-production run, Hepburn decided she didn't like Anne's acting style, and she was replaced. Anne didn't give up. She turned to Hollywood and auditioned for a role as Mrs. De Winter in the movie Rebecca. Alfred Hitchcock thought she was too young for the role, but her skill and determination led her to a 7-year contract with 20th Century Fox. They promptly loaned her to MGM, who gave her 4th billing in her first film, 20 Mule Team, which was pretty good for a 17-year-old just starting out. In the same year, she shot The Great Profile and then Charlie's Aunt with Swamp Water, and The Pied Piper followed the next year. She received top billing for the former and a Best Picture nomination for the latter film. Anne was then loaned to RKO, who produced The Magnificent Ambersons under Orson Welles' direction. Her first Technicolor film was Crash Dive in 1943, and then Paramount picked her up for 5 Graves to Cairo in 1943, where she played a French maid complete with a very convincing accent. She was a popular actress in World War II films and starred in classics like The North Star, The Sullivans, The Eve of St. Mark and Sunday Dinner for a Soldier. It was the last film that she met her first future husband, John Hodiak. It wasn't surprising, as she was garnering almost the same amount of fan mail as Betty Grable, and she noted that our boys idolized the girls next door that she portrayed so well. Her early roles tended to be the wholesome girly girl, and these are the roles she played in the United Artists films, Film Noir, Guest in the House and A Royal Scandal. Anne then decided to marry fellow actor John Hodiak. The happy couple was joined in a small ceremony at her parents' home in Burlingame, California on July 7, 1946. The marriage was doomed from the start. Their schedules would not align and the couple barely saw each other. Anne was busy with movies like Smokey and Angel on My Shoulder in 1946, and then along came The Razor Edge, a movie where Anne played the role of Sophie, a wife whose husband and only child are killed in a car accident, and she moves to Paris to grieve. The role gave her an Academy Award and a Golden Globe for the Best Supporting Actress. She felt that her greatest role was the scene in the hospital, where she relived the death of her own brother many years before. Then movies you'll remember like Blaze of Noon, Homecoming, The Walls of Jericho, The Luck of the Irish, Yellow Sky, You're My Everything, and Ticket to Tomahawk kept her very busy in the next 4 years or so. In 1950 came the role she almost didn't get that created the famous feud between her and Bette Davis. All About Eve originally cast Claudette Colbert as the young and ambitious star that would fight with Bette Davis's aging star character Margot as they performed together in a Hollywood stage production. The story has the younger actress manoeuvring herself into the older actress's world and usurping her. Bette Davis got off on the wrong foot with the other co-star Celeste Holm. Celeste was offended by Betty's gruff and professional manner and avoided Betty when they weren't acting together. Marilyn Monroe, an unknown at the time, was so nervous around Bette Davis that she took 11 takes to get the scene where Betty's character yelled at her right. She then went and vomited in the bathroom. Betty had a fight with her about-to-be-divorced husband, Gary Merrill, the night before filming started, and had a gruff voice in the morning to start filming with. With all these misunderstandings and innuendos flying around, it's a surprise that Bette Davis, with her reputation for not getting on with female co-stars, did actually get on with Anne Baxter. Despite playing despised rivals on film, they became quite good friends, and the rivalry rumour just played into the publicity of the film, as well as being a great accolade for the quality of the two women's acting abilities. All About Eve was a box office success, and even the critics loved it. Anne's role earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress along with Bette Davis for the same movie. The public was divided over who should get it, as both women played such great parts so convincingly. It felt to the public as if their on-screen feud had split over into their private lives again. In the end, the award went to Julie Holliday for her role in Born Yesterday. All About Eve is ranked the 5th best screenplay ever written by the Writers Guild of America, and Anne Baxter is the second most important female American screen legend. All About Eve is cited as the highlight of Anne's career. It's the only film in history to earn 14 Academy Award nominations, including 4 female Oscar nominations. Amidst all the fuss about All About Eve, Anne's first daughter, Katrina, was born in 1951, which took even more of her time. Her rocky marriage was not doing well, and her home life was desolate. Barely on speaking terms, Anne picked a final fight with her husband to bring up the word divorce. She claimed they were barely compatible, and in 1953, when her daughter was just 2, they divorced. John died 2 years later, aged 41, of a heart attack at his parents' home in Tarzana, California. Although her star was rising, she never really broke through into true stardom. The 50s were filled with roles, top billings, and good roles for her. Follow the Sun, The Outcasts of Poker's Flat, O. Henry's Full House, and My Wife's Best Friend added to her resume and reputation, but didn't provide the vehicle she needed to go further. Anne left Fox Studios in 1953 and chose to freelance. She worked with Alfred Hitchcock on I Confess and Fritz Lang on The Blue Gardenia, both murder mysteries. The darker turn in her movie choices also led to a dalliance with Gambino gangster Filippo Ortolitano. That relationship didn't last long, as she then fell in love with her publicist Russell Birdwell, who then took control of her career. He directed her in The Come On, and then the two formed Baxter Birdwell Productions, where the plan was for him to be behind the camera in films she acted in. In 1954, Anne got the role of the Egyptian princess and queen Nefertari in the famed film The Ten Commandments, alongside Charlton Heston, Vincent Price and Yul Brynner. It was an epic religious drama shot on Paramount Sound Stage and on location in Mount Sinai in Egypt. The public loved the movie, and it was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, along with a string of other awards and accolades. It was the 8th most successful film of all time according to the Guinness Book of Records. Anne was quoted as saying that the sound sets were magnificent, but the whole thing was corny. She likened it to a silent movie with a lot of slinking around, but with dialogue. In 1960, Anne got a motion picture star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame due to her consistent acting ability and the blockbusters she had been in. While filming Summer of the 17th Doll in Sydney, Australia in 1960, Anne met Randolph Gault, an American owner of an Australian cattle station. She promptly left America when filming finished with her daughter Katrina and married him. They lived on a 37,000-acre cattle property about 200 miles west of Sydney, where she had 2 more daughters, Melissa and Maginal. In the 9 years they were together, the couple moved back to the US after their second daughter was born, to a ranch in New Mexico and then to Gault's home state of Hawaii before settling down in California. The marriage dissolved in 1969 as she missed acting and he thought she should never have given it up. Despite the fame of her previous movies and reputation for being a skilled actor, Anne had trouble finding work when she divorced Randolph. She wasn't contracted to a studio and she spent this time doing television series like The Great Valley, Dr. Kildare, The Hour of Alfred Hitchcock, who she had worked with many times, and she also played Olga, the evil queen of the Cossacks, and villain Zelda the Great on Batman. Anne played roles as guest villains, played romantic interests, murderous film stars, and in many shows that demonstrated both Anne's reliability and her skill set as an actress. In the 1970s she was offered a chance to reprise All About Eve in the stage version called Applause, but this time as Margot, the protagonist. She played the role till 1972 when she retired a month before the show ended. While Anne was rehearsing for the play, Two Keys in 1973, her co-stars introduced her to her third husband, investment banker David Klee. They dated for nearly 4 years before tying the knot in 1977. The newlyweds purchased a sprawling property in eastern Connecticut, where they embarked on extensive renovations. Unfortunately, David did not live to see the renovations completed. He died shortly after his 70th birthday, after a triple bypass operation. Although Anne had a house in West Hollywood, she considered their Connecticut house her home. In the early 80s, Anne starred in the Aaron Spelling TV series Hotel as Victoria Cabot, interestingly replacing Betty Davis, who was playing the character who was the owner of the St. Gregory Hotel. The series revolves around the relationships between the staff and guests, and the appearances of recognisable guest stars and some incredible plot twists. The show was a success and ran from 1983 to 1988, with a total of 144 episodes to its credit. However, on December 4th, 1985, Anne was hailing a cab on Madison Avenue when she suffered a stroke. She was rushed to Lenox Hill Hospital, where she was put on life support. After 8 days, the family agreed that her brain had ceased to function and the support was turned off. Anne Baxter died on December 12th, aged 62 years. She was buried in her maternal family, the Lloyd Jones Private Cemetery in the town of Wyoming in Wisconsin. Anne did not reach the glittering heights of Hollywood and her fellow actresses of the times, but she offers some insight with her comment, "I'm an actress, not a personality. It's more successful to be a personality, but can you use it in every role? I don't spill over into everything that I do. I do what I do from inside someone else's skin." While Anne was a classic girl next door, a heroine who was easy to sympathise with, she also created some pretty irritating villains and characters who weren't quite who you thought they were. All credit to her acting skills and dedication to her craft as an actress, who was good, but not good enough. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Hollywood has done its best to create tension, not just fake feuds, but fake marriages. Was Terry Moore's marriage to Howard Hughes a scam? Let's find out from this video.